looks like everything on YouTube's good, so we're all good to go. I guess we'll start it off. I just want to thank everybody for coming today. As some of you may know, and those who don't, I'm Nathan. I'm the president of the ISSessions going forward. We have a great presentation today. Thank you, Andrew, for taking some time out of your day to give us a presentation later in the presentation. So I appreciate everybody. John for producing, thank you as well. And I'll let Jabril take it away.
All right, what's up, everybody? Hope everybody's doing good. We're gonna have a real cool meeting today. We have some cool news stories we want to cover, some data breaches, ransomware attacks, exploits that we're gonna be talking about, and we have a special guest, Andrew Bellini, who's joining us this evening, and he's going to be covering IoT and hardware hacking. Andrew, also known as Digital Andrew, makes really cool content on social media. He has a background in electrical engineering and got into cybersecurity through TCM. He credits their quality courses for helping him transition his career to become a technical trainer for a cybersecurity company. I watched his video on the TCM YouTube channel earlier to get an idea of what we're in for this evening, and I'm really excited for his presentation. I really can't wait. So I guess we'll start off with the news stories now, and then we'll do a middle section prepared by Chrono on NVIDIA's market cap and its impact on cybersecurity. Then we'll take a quick break and we'll let our guest speaker Andrew take it away from there.
All right, hello everyone, Hussein here. So I'm going to be talking about some of the challenges Google's been having with their Chrome browser this month in terms of some zero-day exploits that have been discovered. So Google's security team has been having a pretty challenging month dealing with some of these exploits. They've just released a new patch due to a series of ongoing security flaws and 0 days that have been found out this month. So the latest patch they've released addresses the fourth 0 day that Google has tackled just in May. So it's pretty clear that it's been particularly difficult for them over there. So the patch mitigates the risk against a type confusion vulnerability that was found in the W8 JavaScript and WebAssembly engine. And now you guys may be asking, what is a type confusion vulnerability? Essentially, this occurs when a program mistakenly accesses a resource using an incorrect type. So imagine trying to read a text file as if it were a spreadsheet. You can see how things could get confusing and messy right away. And that's similar to what happens here in this zero-day exploit. This kind of vulnerability is pretty serious, and it allows attackers to perform out-of-bounds memory access, cause crashes, and even execute arbitrary code. So given the severity of this security flaw, it's crucial that you guys are all staying up to date on your security updates, which you probably already know. Even the likes of big companies such as Google are susceptible to vulnerabilities, which you don't really hear about often, and can have a great impact on your security and privacy. So make sure you guys all stay up to date with your patches. Thank you all for listening.
Awesome. So that was really good, Hussein. Thank you. So good evening, everybody. I'm going to be discussing a recent cybersecurity incident involving Ticketmaster. This breach has a significant implications for millions of users globally. So what we know is for sure the Department of Home Affairs of Australia has confirmed that it's collaborating with Ticketmaster to understand the extent of this cybersecurity incident. This incident was first reported by Cyber Daily, which revealed the notorious hacker group Shiny Hunters has allegedly stolen personal information from Ticketmaster customers. Ticketmaster has not responded to requests for details about the cyber incident from the ABC News Network, and the Department of Home Affairs is aware of the incident and actively investigating. According to Cyber Daily, personal information of 560 million, like half a billion Ticketmaster customers, may have been compromised. This data, totaling 1.3 terabytes, includes names of customers, addresses, credit card numbers, phone numbers, and payment details. Shiny Hunters is reportedly selling this data for $500,000 on breach forums. Some additional points about this is the Shiny Hunters hacking group has shared the details of this alleged hack, and the data includes the full details. And in 2022, also this group, the Shiny Hunters, leaked the information of 70 million AT&T subscribers. So we know that these guys are pretty serious. Their name, Shiny Hunters, I think comes from Pokemon, and that's where like they get that interesting name from. Cybersecurity expert Mark Lukey emphasized that this breach could have major implications for Australian customers. The stolen data includes very serious and sensitive information that could lead to identity theft, financial fraud, further cyber attacks, and phishing attempts. Shiny Hunters is a well-known hacker group with a history of high-profile data breaches. They're also the owners of Breach Forums, a platform for cybercrime activities. Despite efforts by the FBI to shut down the forum, Shiny Hunters managed to reclaim the domain and continue their operations. Shiny Hunters claims to have contacted Ticketmaster about this breach, but have not received a response from Ticketmaster. Hackery.com has also reached out to Ticketmaster for comments, but there have been no official statement from Ticketmaster yet. This is not Ticketmaster's first cybersecurity issue. In January 2023, ticket sales for a Taylor Swift concert were disrupted by a bot-driven attack. In January 2021, Ticketmaster was found guilty of hacking into a rival company, Songkick Systems, leading to a $10 million settlement. And recently, on May 23rd, 2024, the U.S. Justice Department sued Live Nation Ticketmaster for monopolizing markets across the live concert industry. So affected users have been advised to monitor their financial accounts closely and change their passwords and stay alert for potential phishing attempts. In conclusion, this incident underscores the growing menace of cybercrime and the need for companies to prioritize cybersecurity. Transparency and swift communication are crucial in mitigating damage and restoring user and customer trust. So thank you guys for your attention, and we'll go on to the next.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk about a ransomware attack that has severely impacted one of the most prominent auction houses in the world. Christie's was the target of the Ransom Hub organization on May 9th, 2024. This attack is more than just a story of an $840 million auction being disrupted. It is an alarming reminder of the weaknesses and threats that even the most prestigious organizations face in the digital age. Established in 1766, Christie's is a name linked with elegance and legacy, serving the likes of art icons such as Leonardo da Vinci and Pablo Picasso. It is a well-known brand that famous people and art collectors frequent. This assault on this iconic organization serves as a reminder that every business, no matter how big or small, is vulnerable to cyber attacks. Before getting into the details of the attack, it's crucial to understand the organization behind it. Ransom Hub, a relatively new yet quickly expanding ransomware as a service group, debuted in early 2024. They use a complex affiliate model in which they give ransomware tools and infrastructure to affiliated hackers in exchange for a 10% cut of the ransom payments. This strategy has attracted a diverse group of skilled hackers, allowing Ransom Hub to rapidly develop their operations and target high-profile businesses globally. On May 9th, 2024, Christie's system is hit. This sophisticated malware forced Christie's to take their website down, briefly halting operations and interrupting the $840 million auction. Ransom Hub used a double extortion strategy. Double extortion meaning that they encrypted the 4 terabytes of sensitive client information from Christie's data, and they exfiltrated it. They threatened to make sensitive client information public unless a $22 million ransom was paid. The dual threat aspect of this assault, which combined data encryption with theft, displays the growing sophistication of ransomware operations. Christie's choice to pay the ransom demonstrates the enormous pressure that these assaults put on victims, considering the regulatory and social repercussions of a sensitive client information data leak. As the majority of us here today desire to be cybersecurity experts, we must be able to apply industry best practices to our trade in order to avoid such a devastating attack on our future business. To effectively defend against sophisticated ransomware attacks like the one Christie's faced, companies must emphasize 2 important cybersecurity measures, those being network segmentation and regular data backups. Christie's did not have adequate network segmentation, which resulted in them shutting their website down and halting operations until they came to a temporary solution. To conclude, the ransomware attack on Christie's highlights the urgent need for strong cybersecurity measures, even for the most prestigious organizations. The incident underscores the importance of implementing effective network segmentation and maintaining regular, secure data backups to mitigate the impact of such attacks. By learning from Christie's experience and adopting these best practices, we can better protect our future organizations from the ever-evolving threat of ransomware. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for your attention.
So on May 8th, a little company named Dell, you might have heard of, began sending emails out to their customers, warning them of a data breach they experienced. They provide some more details. So they state that the breach included full customer names, physical addresses, as well as more information around the Dell hardware and the orders for them, or in the way Dell put it, not sensitive information. Additionally, just a little bit before, on April 28th, the user Menelek on breach forums, this was before it was taken down and then subsequently brought up, was coincidentally selling 49 million customer records. The news outlet TechCrunch verified that he was in possession of legitimate Dell customer data, and there hasn't really been any official response from Dell stating that the data breach they're referring to in the email is the same as the breach that Menelek was advertising. But based on the timing, the fact that the data fields listed in Dell's email and the forum listing line up, and the methodology as well, which we'll be getting into, it's pretty safe to say this is the data breach Dell was referring to. So in terms of the actual methodology, it's pretty interesting. Like, you might be thinking SQL injection, command injection, whatever. It was a little bit more silly than that. So Menelek states that after discovering a portal for Dell partners, they registered an account using a fake company name, and they gained access within 2 days with zero verification. After they gained access to this portal, Menelek made a program to brute force the 7-digit service tag, submit that to the portal to get the order information back. And this program was generating 5,000 requests per minute for nearly 3 weeks. So zero rate limiting from Dell there. And as this was going on, Menelek did send emails out to Dell on 2 separate occasions, not really for heroic reasons, but because Menelek wanted to be the sole possessor of this data so that they can sell it for more on breach forums. However, Dell did not fix the flaw until around the same time the breach forums listing went up. So I did mention how Dell said the data access is not highly sensitive, and to their defense, it could have been worse. There was no financial information taken. There was no login information taken. However, that doesn't mean there's no attacks which could be created from this. I'd imagine the hardware information would be really useful for tech support scammers trying to pose as Dell. However, there is also the hurdle. There was no email addresses or telephone numbers, so any would-be scammers would have trouble contacting their clients. However, if they do correlate, say, the address with the address in another data breach, which happens to contain email addresses, social engineering attacks would be possible. There's also the chance for physical mail social engineering attacks with the physical address. So certainly not zero risk here. And if you're wondering, I do use Dell. However, I am not affected by this data breach. So to all my enemies out there, better luck next time.
Mic on.
You can go and say something if you wanted to.
Those news stories were really good. Now we have our middle segment from John, which I'm really interested to listen to. So yeah, go for it, bro.
Cool. So welcome everybody. Today I just wanted to talk about the significant impact of NVIDIA's market cap on the cybersecurity sector. So I'm going to go over a couple of stuff, but a few slides and stuff, but mostly we'll talk about how NVIDIA and other tech giants, known as the Magnificent Seven, can leverage their substantial financial resources to drive innovation and enhance cybersecurity measures. If you guys don't know, market cap is the total value of a company's outstanding shares of stock, and it's calculated by multiplying the current share price by the total number of outstanding shares. So to start, this past May, NVIDIA, well, while I was researching it, they had reached a market cap of, it says 2.553 trillion, but now it's up to 2.75 trillion. Yesterday it was at 2.6 trillion, so it just keeps going up and up. So basically ever increasing. For perspective, this valuation of NVIDIA surpasses countries like Russia, South Korea, Australia, I think also India, I believe. NVIDIA has, as you know, recently they've contributed pivotal technologies like their new GPUs that use AI and ML technologies for edge cases, like edge computing. These specific technologies are very critical in cybersecurity because we are now enabled to get real-time threat detection and, like I said before, edge computing, which improves the efficiency and speed of security processes. Now that we have some background, we can talk a little bit about the economic and long-term implications of NVIDIA's insane growth. Economically, this significantly large market cap enables NVIDIA to extensively invest in cybersecurity R&D. These investments will lead to the creation of cutting-edge security technologies and will set global standards and practices in cybersecurity. Following all these investments, these long-term implications can be quite profound. Advanced AI models running on NVIDIA hardware can provide faster and more accurate threat detection, while automated responses to security incidents reduce resolution time. Additionally, these innovations will make advanced security tools available to more businesses and not just the largest ones. So anybody can pick up this real-time threat detection. You know, you just created your business, you know, in the basement last weekend, and you can use this new type of features. Finally, if NVIDIA partners with other companies, they can create comprehensive security systems which would promote a safer digital environment. I also wanted to talk about the Magnificent Seven. I mentioned it in my intro. I don't know if you guys know that term. It's come out more recently in the past maybe like 5-10 years. If you guys aren't aware, the Magnificent Seven is basically the top 7 companies in the S&P 500. They are Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, which is Google, Amazon, NVIDIA, Tesla, and Meta, which is Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, stuff like that. So these basically tech giants, they hold vast cash reserves, like actually like literal cash, basically being able to spend, you know, tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars on whatever they want to invest in, whatever they want to buy, anything like that. So, for instance, we can just go over a few of the companies here. Apple has over 200 billion, Microsoft 130. You see NVIDIA down there with 20 billion. Meta got close to 50 billion. So, you know, the cash on hand, it's a lot for these guys. Like combined, probably close to, you know, 600, 700 billion dollars just cash on hand. So these cash reserves enable them to buy innovative cybersecurity startups, integrating them and developing them with advanced security solutions. This financial power can help them quickly respond to new threats and apply strong security measures across many industries, which would improve the overall cybersecurity landscape. And I'm sure you guys would all agree. And I wanted to talk about some real-world examples, just so you can see that with this money, things can actually get moving forward with that. So in 2020, Microsoft acquired CyberX, which was a leading IoT and industrial cybersecurity company. CyberX specialized in protecting critical infrastructure such as energy, oil, and gas industries. This acquisition allowed Microsoft to enhance its Azure IoT security capabilities, which would provide better protection for connected devices and securing industrial control systems against other cyber threats. For the next company, I don't know if you guys heard of Chronicle. I actually haven't heard of Chronicle. I was researching it for this specific purpose, but Google had developed Chronicle, I think it was a couple years ago, it was basically a cybersecurity intelligence platform. They basically developed this under Google's like sub company called Google X, and it's basically like a moonshot factory, which is basically a factory or a project or a type of team that undertakes projects that, you know, are speculative, but they have the potential to create significant advancements if they are successful. So yeah, that's what they did with Chronicle, and it was leveraging Google's vast data and AI expertise. to help organizations detect, investigate, and respond to cyber threats more effectively. It integrates seamlessly with other security operations as well. And then finally, just our last topic, or our last group here, NVIDIA and VMware collaborated to create an AI-driven cybersecurity solutions for virtualized environments. This partnership leverages NVIDIA's expertise in AI and VMware's leadership in virtualization technology. And this collaboration focuses on enhancing threat detection and response times, particularly in data centers and cloud environments, which would help integrate advanced AI capabilities into VMware's security products. Finally, just to conclude, NVIDIA's remarkable market cap and the financial power of the Magnificent Seven significantly influences the cybersecurity sector. Through extensive investments, acquisitions, and technological advancements, these companies are shaping a more secure digital future. I really hope you enjoyed learning about this as I did researching, and I thank you guys for your attention.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Mic off.
I believe now we're going to take a quick break. The CCR form is in the stream questions thread. And then we're going to have our guest, Andrew, do his presentation. Thank you, guys.
Perfect. So I guess we already had a little bit of an intro, but I will do just a really quick one to let everyone know who I am with a little who am I here. So my name is Andrew Bellini, and I go by Digital Andrew on the social medias. I am an electrical engineer by training, so went to school to be an electrical engineer, and yeah, I have my PEng. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I now work as a content creator at TCM Security. Before that, I actually worked for a cybersecurity company as a technical trainer and a software developer. And I am the creator of TCM Security's IoT hacking course and also a recently released Practical Junior IoT Tester certification. And if you're curious with linking up with me, you have any questions, want to reach out, you can find all my social media links at andrewbellini.com. And definitely connect with me on LinkedIn or on Twitter or whatever. I love keeping in touch with people that also are interested in cybersecurity. Before we dig into the lesson, I want to go over a couple of safety slides. So the first one is, if you're not familiar with ethical hacking, it's going to be that ethical hacking speech of we should only be testing on devices we own or are authorized to. And then specifically for IoT devices, if you are reverse engineering firmware, then we should be checking with local laws and regulations as to whether or not you're going to be breaking any laws that could get you in trouble. And then we should also be ethical and follow responsible disclosure if we do find anything. Okay, so, and then since we're going to be working with hardware, we should also never be working on high voltage. So what do I mean by that? Well, with IoT devices, that's generally not going to be a concern, but the stuff that's plugged into the wall, we should just never be touching that. Leave that to the electricians. Should never use damaged or modified power supplies. And then also we should just power off any circuits when they're not in use. This is just good advice. All right, so now that we've got that safety stuff out of the way, just a quick agenda of what we're going to be looking at tonight. So the first thing we'll be talking about is why IoT and hardware hacking go together. And then for the rest of the lesson, we're going to be chatting about how you can actually get started hacking your very first IoT device by getting a UART shell. So instead of just going over like a really broad overview, I am going to talk about specifically one attack or thing that's very common with hardware hacking and IoT hacking, and how if you wanted to, you could go pick up some devices for pretty cheap and get started doing that tomorrow. So in order to do that, we'll talk about what UART is. We'll then talk about how to identify UART connections. We'll then talk about how to get a shell. After that, we will talk about what you can do with that shell and why it matters, and then we will do a wrap-up. Okay, so the very first thing I want to talk about is why IoT and hardware hacking go together. And the reason for that is that IoT gives us a very unique attack surface in that we can actually, as consumers or attackers or cyber criminals, go out and actually attack, purchase hardware. And you wouldn't be able to do that if... Sorry about that, guys. I am back. Okay, so IoT devices give us a really unique attack vector or surface that we would not otherwise have. So if you think of, like, for example, a web penetration test or something like that, you're never going to have access to the underlying hardware. I mean, it's probably hosted in a cloud server somewhere. And of course, we can't get access to that hardware. However, we could. It would make our lives a lot easier because we could probably get access to the source code or at least the binaries or things like that and start to reverse engineer them. And if we already started with a shell, that would make our lives a lot easier too. So with IoT, of course, yeah, anyone can just go out and buy an IoT device, whether you're a bad guy or ethical security researcher. And we can use that hardware to make our lives a lot easier by possibly getting a shell or our hands on the firmware. And then from there, it's going to make it a lot easier to find exploits that could be remotely exploited. So a lot of a lot of companies that are cyber crime companies that are making botnets, they love to target IoT devices because it can be easy to pick up the devices and find exploits that they can then add them to their botnets. Just on the pictured here, I've got a picture of a smart camera that I have been hacking on, and I would not have been able to get a copy of its firmware without access to the hardware. I couldn't find it anywhere online. So the only way I could get it was through dumping it through the hardware. Okay, so for the rest of the chat, we're just going to be talking about one very common, I don't even want to say exploit, but piece of configuration that is left on IoT devices. It's one of the very first things to look at, one of the easiest kind of low-hanging fruits, but you'll find it on a lot of IoT devices, and that is the UART connection, and this can let us get a shell. So that's what we're going to be talking about for the rest of this chat. So the first thing is, like, what device should I start with if you want to try and hack an IoT device? So we'll chat about that a little bit. The first thing I always say is the cheaper, the better. So I usually go out and I will try and find cheap smart cameras, cheap routers if possible. If you can, try and find it for free. Like, lots of time people are just getting rid of routers. You can find them in like e-waste or things like that. I always have a personal recommendation to folks looking to get started is don't hack on anything that you don't mind destroying. So like if you only have one Wi-Fi router or something, what I'm showing in this section or this talk today is like stuff that's probably not going to damage your devices, but you never know. I've fried lots of devices in hardware hacking, so I always say do something if it got burned up or you bricked it or whatever that you won't be too upset about. Okay, so once you pick your device, whatever it is, if you got free ones, then I would say just take them apart, take a look at it if you're looking to buy one. Again, smart cameras, cheap Wi-Fi routers. The first thing that I almost always look for is UART. And UART stands for Universal Asynchronous Receiver Transmitter. So this is a very old and very common protocol for electrical communication. So it uses pulses of voltage to transmit binaries. So you can literally think, if you're familiar with like the OSI model, this isn't even part of that, but if you're familiar with layer 1, like the actual bits on the wire or the voltage, that's how UART works. So you'll have like a connector or a pin, as it's sometimes referred to, and we just change the voltage on that pin from either high to low. So if I just bring up my pen here, you can think of like on here, we have the top here, and this would be like 3.3 volts. And then down here would be 0 volts. And then it's as simple in this, what's called a frame here. So almost like one packet of UART. We're sending the letter P. We're doing that in ASCII. And so you can think of like each one of these are pulses. And these would all be 0 volts all across here, these pulses. And then when we want to send a 1, then we send a 3.3 volts and so on. And so it's a pretty simple and straightforward communication protocol. And the reason for that, and that it's so frequently used with embedded devices, is because we use this for our logging and for our console and for troubleshooting. So you want to have something super simple that's going to work easily, because it might be the only thing you get working, so you can look at logs or see what's going on. So just I'll give a zoomed out example. This is that same boot log that I was showing and that I was able to capture through the UART, and it's just giving us an interrupt if we wanted to abort the boot process. So kind of similar to your like bootloader or like the BIOS in your computer. Okay, so if you got your hands on a router or a smart camera now and you've opened it up and now we have an idea about what UART is, how do we find it? So UART at a minimum is going to require 3 contacts. You have TX, RX, and ground. So TX is transmit. That's where you're going to send the data. RX is receive. So that's where it's going to receive data. And then you need a common ground so that you know that 3.3 volts is the same thing to both of them. And on a lot of cheap IoT devices, you can just find them fairly easily by looking. Like you can see on this router here, they've actually gone even as far as labeling all of the pins, which makes it super easy. And you'll see this pretty commonly. One of the reasons for that is UART will generally be left on the device because it's required as part of the QA process. There'll be some sort of automated QA where maybe they'll do it on all the boards, or they'll pull off a batch of them and they use that to check the logs and make sure everything's okay. So they just leave these connections on the board. Sometimes it won't be that easy. So just a few other pictures of what this can look like. So here's this smart camera that I was working on the left, and the 3 pads here I was able to identify are the transmit, receive, and ground. And then on the right, there's another one where they're all together. So it's pretty obvious, but they're not labeled. Okay. So if they are not labeled, there is a few really easy ways that we can still find them with fairly basic and cheap tools. The first one is a digital multimeter, which I've got right here, which allows us to take measurements like measure the voltage. And we can take advantage of the fact that UART is very chatty on boot up. And what does this mean? Well, if you ever, like, for example, booted up your computer and you see all the stuff streaming across your screen, especially if it's a Linux device, you see a lot of stuff when it boots up, all of those boot logs. Well, it's going to be the same for IoT devices. So the UART is going to have this big blast of information. And because of that, we can look for a fluctuating voltage. So if I just go back here, for example, to this one, if you were to measure the voltage on this TX contact here, so this one right here, during boot up, and if I even just go back to this screen, or maybe this one, you can see how, like, the voltage, you're probably going to measure something in the middle. And if you see that voltage fluctuating kind of up and down between like the 1 volt to the 2 volts, that's an indication of all these blips of positive voltages and low voltages. And then your receive pin is generally going to be steady at the VCC or whatever the operating voltage is. So usually 3.3 volts or 5 volts. And then you can check for continuity with a known ground to ID the ground for the UART. Once you think you've identified the pins, you can actually go further with a very cheap device called a logic analyzer. You can pick these up for like $10 to $15. And you can use the open source SIGROC Pulse View software. So that's, for example, this picture here was me taking a look at what that looks like with the logic analyzer. And the logic analyzer essentially just lets us to view digital communications. So it can help us identify if they're UART connections. It can also help us identify other different digital communications as well. Okay, so once we've gone and we've picked out our IoT device, opened it up, found a UART, which is going to be pretty much like on every IoT device, you'll find UART. How can we then go and like actually interact with it, view it on our computer screens? You can use a UART to USB bridge / adapter. So I've got a picture of a cheap one here. This is literally $2, this device. And one end plugs into the USB, and then the other one plugs into the contacts on your board. There's nothing really that tricky about it. The only one thing you need to remember is, of course, the transmit from the board. Well, we want to receive that transmit. It can be tempting to hook the transmit to transmit because they're the same, but we want to receive the transmit, and then we want to transmit to the receive of the device. So we cross those over. We connect the grounds together, and then if there is a VCC, when you're doing hardware hacking with a USB to UART adapter like this, we don't even need to worry about it. So you can just leave that one disconnected. So just a quick picture here for that router, even if you wanted to connect to those pins, it's as simple as you just cross the RX and TX and link the ground together. Okay, so once you get those connected, next step is pretty straightforward, but we can then go ahead and get a shell. So there's a few different pieces of software you can use. If you're on a Windows PC, then you can use PuTTY. If you're familiar with that, it's a terminal emulator. If you're on Linux, which is my preference for doing hardware hacking or ethical hacking, you can use software like Screen, PicoCom, or Minicom. These are all common terminal emulators. And on these software, you'll need to set the parameters for your serial communication. So baud is almost always going to be 115200 for IoT devices, 8 data bits and 1 stop bit. So those are like the default serial parameters. And I've never come across an IoT device that didn't either use that or 9600 for baud rate. Okay, so if you do get a shell, what do you do now? Generally, the first thing you're going to want to do is to enumerate, just like if you're on any other Linux system. So most IoT devices are going to be running embedded Linux. So you'll have like a shell that will be fairly similar to if you got a shell on another Linux device. And we can enumerate, we can look for things like API keys, passwords. There'll be a lot of scripts, like bash scripts generally, that do the functionality of the device. You can read through those scripts, see how they work. Sometimes I'll look through them, and for example, you might find like API endpoints that should be hidden, API keys, things like that. And then also sometimes you can even dump the firmware through your UART shell, or generally I'll get the firmware through another method and then use my shell to help me see what's going on in the live device. You could hook up like a remote debugger if you're wanting to do like binary exploitation, or even just to see, for example, like what processes are running, what network ports are open, all that juicy stuff that you would want to do. And also, I want to talk about a little bit. So why does it matter also? Because I always hear this when hardware hacking is like the router or the smart camera or things like that, like they're locked in someone's house, right? So for an attacker, like not a security researcher, but for like a bad guy, to use that term, why does this matter? And for most hardware, it doesn't actually matter for like that specific device, right? Like hacking this smart camera, for example, that I have on the screen, the shell of it, getting access to a shell through UART in and of itself is maybe not a security issue. The issue is that it makes it a lot easier for attackers to figure out how the device works and come up with exploits that could be exploited remotely that would be really hard to find without having that access to the device, like a live device behind the curtains, looking at all the scripts, all the binaries, and then also getting access to the firmware, which a lot of times you can get from the hardware. And then we can start picking apart that firmware, reverse engineering it. And there are exploits that people find that I don't think there's any way you would find them without actually having access to that hardware. So that's why this stuff kind of matters. And then also, some devices, IoT devices or embedded devices, it is expected that the public will have some access to the hardware, or they may. So just a few examples off the top of my head, something like a crypto wallet or even a smart lock where the hardware might be accessible from the outside of your house. So all those reasons, good reasons to learn and also be careful for hardware security. Okay, so if you do want to learn more, if you found this interesting, again, this was just like a really quick lesson because I knew I wasn't going to have a whole lot of time to dig into the full details. I do have the full course on TCM security, so you can get access to that through our All Access Pass. I've been doing a bunch of free stuff on the TCM security YouTube. So I did a series of videos on hacking the smart camera that's shown here, and I did a whole live stream, like 2 hours that you can see. It's all free. And then there's another great creator on YouTube named Matt Brown who has a lot of awesome YouTube content, all for free. So would strongly recommend checking that out. And then just one final plug here, if you are interested at all in further cybersecurity training, about the training that TCM Security offers, and our whole array of certifications, which are pretty cool because you get one free retake with them. And I know, like, I work for them now, but I actually was introduced to cybersecurity and learned the most about cybersecurity by just taking them as an individual. I just stumbled across their courses and really fell in love with particularly their practical ethical hacking course. And that's how I ended up working for them like 5 years after I took their first course. So just wanted to give a quick shout out for them. If anyone has any questions, feel free also to ask them in the chat, or feel free to just come off mute and chat. I got a question here. What is the best courses on TCM? I think the Practical Ethical Hacking course, so it's PEH. This is the original course by Heath Adams, who is like the cyber mentor. That course is amazing. If you are actually, honestly, whatever level of offensive security or penetration testing, that course is so good. It's really practical. It goes over like all the stuff you would actually encounter in a penetration test. So I would say that is probably the best course. But honestly, all of them are really good. Like, we're pretty picky about what ones go on there. So yeah, everyone's good. I would start with that one though. You can also, if you go on our YouTube, you can watch the first whole like 10 hours or something of it. Which one was the coolest? Oh, this smart camera that I was just recently hacking was pretty cool because they did a lot of the stuff with scripts, so it was really easy to figure out what was going on, and I was able to they weren't doing very good security on secure boot, so I was able to actually put custom firmware onto the camera as well, which was pretty interesting.
I was just gonna ask, actually, how did you get started with hardware hacking? Like, what made you kind of jump into that?
So my background is in electrical engineering.
Right.
So like that's what I went to school for. So I learned about like making PCBs and embedded devices. And I also worked doing like embedded industrial IoT, so IIoT.
That's really cool. Wow.
So I kind of like knew about it from the design perspective, and then I just started hacking stuff. Mostly just, I've always been curious how things worked. So I started taking apart things like routers or that kind of stuff, like even like 10 years ago. Back in the day, like you couldn't really get Raspberry Pis or things like that. So it was easier to buy cheap routers and then get single board computers by taking apart the router and getting the PCB out and reverse engineering it, figuring out how you can put like your own custom firmware and stuff. And that's how you could get like cheap single board computers that people will get Raspberry Pis now for. So that was how I got into it.
I appreciate that. That's a great answer. Thank you so much.
Is there a device where you found something? Yeah, I mean, I found like a bunch of interesting things like API keys or like endpoints that shouldn't have been there, or like a lot of times really easy access to like the parameters that are set for the device for like that specific person. So like if I did get it from e-waste, like routers where it's very easy to recover like Wi-Fi passwords and SSIDs. Yeah, sometimes it's kind of the wild west for IoT as far as security. So I don't know, find devices that are running like Hellnet with no password or very little password. There's lots of times I find things that are suspicious or suspect or not good.
All right, thank you so much, Andrew. Unless there's one more question, Chrono's typing.
What does it say? Sorry, can you tell us how you found your first job in the security industry? Yeah, absolutely. So throughout my career, I have done a lot of technical training just as an engineer. I worked at places that always sold products that required training. And I just kind of got comfortable doing that as part of my job. And so I did more and more of it until like at one job, it was kind of like, I don't know, maybe like 30 or 40% of my job. And I leveraged that expertise plus also taking courses and just doing stuff like this, like joining clubs and CTFs. So I leveraged that experience that was kind of like not cybersecurity, but adjacent to it to get a job doing training at a cybersecurity company. So yeah, I always suggest that to people trying to break into cybersecurity is if you have other adjacent experience, then try and leverage that, whatever you've done. And then the stuff like attending these sessions, CTFs, if you have a GitHub or write a blog or something like that, it really, really goes a long way. Because I've done some hiring now as well, and those kind of things like really stick out to help you differentiate yourself from other people that are applying. So yeah, that's how I transitioned. How do you maintain that is talent? That is a tough thing in cybersecurity. I don't know. For me, it helps that I really enjoy what I do, so I guess that helps with the balance and that like I'm doing, especially at TCM, I'm very lucky. Like I'm doing stuff that I'm very interested in, so that helps a lot.
Cool.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, Andrew. We really enjoyed your presentation there. And if there isn't any more questions, then I think it'd be good to wrap it up.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me, everyone. Honestly, reach out on LinkedIn. Like if you're on LinkedIn or Twitter, it would be great to keep up with what you guys are doing. So definitely shoot me a connection request.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Bye for now.
All right. Take care. So I guess that wraps up our first meeting of the summer. I hope everybody learned something today and enjoyed the news and Adam's presentation. I definitely did. And if anybody wants to say anything, that'll be cool. If not, then I guess that'll be it for now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for everybody for coming out. It was a good turnout, and yeah, it was a good time. So thanks everybody for coming out.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for coming out and listening.
Great job, everybody. Take it easy, everyone.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.